Right now, the crisis between Russia and Azerbaijan is becoming extremely interesting, developing at a speed and intensity almost no one expected. A lot has happened over the past months, and we may now be witnessing a shift in regional strategy so significant that historians may eventually call this the beginning of the end of Russia's dominance in the Caucasus. We have at least reached the end of the beginning, where long-standing political tensions, frozen conflicts, and hidden resentments that have simmered for decades are finally erupting into the open. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia has always been extremely confident about its ability to maintain absolute control over its post-Soviet neighbors through intimidation, manipulation, and strategic pressure. For years, this strategy worked, and countries like Azerbaijan tolerated Moscow's influence because they had no choice. But over time, Russia's power has eroded, and now, after several years of shifting alliances, economic realignments, and especially the war in Ukraine, we are seeing something extraordinary. A former ally is openly challenging Moscow in ways that were unthinkable a few years ago. Nowhere is this more clear than in the aftermath of the Christmas Day tragedy, when an Azerbaijani passenger aircraft was hit by shrapnel while passing through Russian airspace. Early on, many dismissed the idea that Russia would ever intentionally strike a civilian plane, but as more evidence surfaced, it became undeniable that something was seriously wrong. Russia insisted it was an accident, pointing toward weather conditions, then birds, then Ukrainian drones. But every one of these explanations fell apart, and what Azerbaijan discovered was that a Russian air defense system likely hit a plane full of families, and Russia then attempted to cover it up. Early in this crisis, critics laughed at the notion that Azerbaijan could ever stand up to Russia, assuming Baku would eventually fall back in line. But over the past months, we've seen the exact opposite. Azerbaijan is not only holding its ground, it is now escalating, pressing, and pushing back aggressively. Russia, shockingly, seems unable to respond effectively, and the balance of power is changing fast. We see Russia's growing weakness most visibly in its diplomacy, where Moscow has been scrambling to control the narrative but failing miserably. Russia tried to explain the aircraft incident with contradictory stories, but each new explanation only exposed more inconsistencies. This steady erosion of trust has significantly damaged Russia's standing in the region, and now their ability to manipulate events is collapsing. We also see Russia struggling in its internal security. Shortly after Azerbaijan demanded accountability for the plane incident, 2 Azerbaijani brothers in Russia were detained and mysteriously died while in police custody. Russia labeled it an accident, even claiming one died of a heart attack, but Azerbaijan was not convinced. They saw it as a warning, a signal sent by the Russian state, and instead of backing down, Baku responded with unprecedented force. This included summoning the Russian ambassador, canceling cultural events, launching criminal cases, and exposing a Russian intelligence operation inside the Sputnik news agency in Baku. Even more striking is Russia's weakness in the propaganda war. Russian state media began spreading a conspiratorial theory, claiming that Azerbaijani diaspora communities inside Russia helped Ukraine carry out Operation Spiderweb. This was one of the most humiliating attacks ever conducted against Russian military facilities. Russia blamed Azerbaijan to distract from its own failure, but the narrative collapsed almost immediately. Not only was the story false, it was also a sign of desperation, a move made by a country running out of real options. Meanwhile, Azerbaijan was taking strategic steps of its own. Unlike Russia's misinformation tactics, Azerbaijan's support for Ukraine has been open, consistent, and entirely legal. Tens of millions of dollars in humanitarian aid, generators, transformers, medical supplies, electrical equipment, and most importantly, highly advanced demoning vehicles. For Russia, a country desperately trying to maintain influence, this was a direct challenge, and it demonstrated something Russia never expected. Azerbaijan was no longer afraid. But the real brilliance of Azerbaijan's approach lies in its long-term strategy. To understand that, we need to recognize a critical point. Russia no longer has the leverage it once had. For decades, Moscow used the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict as its primary tool to control Azerbaijan. By keeping the conflict frozen, Russia ensured that both Armenia and Azerbaijan remained dependent on Moscow's political will. But in 2023, everything changed. In a stunningly fast operation, Azerbaijan retook Karabakh and reintegrated the territory. And Russia, despite having peacekeepers in the region, did nothing. This was a turning point. For the first time in 30 years, Azerbaijan was completely free of the main pressure point Russia used to control it. And once that happened, Azerbaijan's foreign policy radically shifted. No more fear, no more hesitation. Instead, a newfound confidence, supported by a mutual defense pact with Turkey, a NATO member. Suddenly, any attack on Azerbaijan risked triggering a NATO confrontation, and Russia simply cannot afford that. And in this context, Azerbaijan began building something that directly threatens Russia's long-term economic and political influence, the Middle Corridor. A massive trade route connecting China to Europe, bypassing Russia entirely. Every shipment that crosses the Caspian Sea instead of Russian territory is a blow to Russia's geopolitical leverage. Azerbaijan is emerging as a logistics superpower, and Russia knows it. As all of this unfolds, Russia is running out of options. They cannot open a new military front. Their forces are overstretched and exhausted in Ukraine. They cannot fully break ties with Azerbaijan. They rely on trade routes, energy networks, and regional stability. And they cannot stop Azerbaijan's growing partnership with Ukraine without risking further geopolitical isolation. That's why Russia has resorted to hybrid tactics, pressure on migrant communities, information warfare, intelligence operations, and economic coercion. But even these tools are becoming less effective. The more Russia pushes, the more Azerbaijan pushes back. And now, we are seeing something extraordinary, the slow collapse of Russia's sphere of influence, not through war, but through the refusal of former allies to remain subordinate. What we are watching right now is a major geopolitical shift. Azerbaijan, once deeply entangled in Russian influence, is now asserting its independence, its alliances, and its future. And as this continues, Russia will face a crisis it never expected, a region slipping from its grasp, not because of revolution, but because of empowerment. Russia built its foreign policy on the belief that post-Soviet states had no choice but to follow Moscow. Azerbaijan is proving that belief wrong, and as it moves closer to Ukraine and further from Russia, the balance of power in the entire region could be transformed. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this breakdown insightful, do consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It's completely free, but it helps the channel more than you know. And as always, if you want to support further, there are links in the description. I'll see you in the next one.